This video will go through problem 12.1 from Gapenski's Healthcare Finance 6th edition. In problem 12.1, we're asked to compare two stocks, one that is a growth stock and the other that is going to pay out its whole earnings in the form of dividends. So both firms are going to have earnings per share equal to $6, right? And then what we're going to try to do is estimate the price, what we think the price of the stock should be. So P0 would be the actual market price, right, today, but EP0 is our valuation, right, based on our expectations. So the formula to get EP0 is equal to D0, the dividend today, times 1 plus the growth rate divided by the required rate of return on the equity minus the expected growth rate. Now, remember that if we have some future dividend, expected dividend, then this term becomes, that would be D1, right? D1 is the next dividend that we expect to get, the dividend in period one, and that would be equal to D0 times 1 plus the growth rate over R, still same denominator, so RRE, right? Okay, so now we've got the basic formula we're going to use to calculate the valuation. So D1 for firm D, so in firm D, the dividend is going to equal the EPS, right? Or it's going to be $6. So this firm is not reinvesting in itself. And so its growth rate is going to be 0 because it's not reinvesting any of its earnings back into the firm. So we've got REP0 for D is going to, the D1 is going to be the same as D0 is going to be the same as D1 because 1 plus EG is going to be 1, right? Because EG is equal to 0. So we've got $6 in dividends, and it's always going to be $6 in dividends, divided by RRE minus EG. So we know that our required rate of return for both of these firms is 0.15 or 15%. So RRE, I'm going to put it down here as 0.15. So 6 divided by 0.15 is 40. So the current value of firm D is $40 per share, right? Based on a non-growing dividend and a required rate of return of 0.15. Now, firm G, right, is going to have a growth rate equal to 8.33%. They still have the same required rate of return, and their dividend is going to equal 1/3 of EPS, or $2 per share. So, and it says here that, so an important point here is company D is expected to pay out not company D. Well, company G for growth is expected to pay out only 1/3 of its earnings, or $2 per share. $2 per share. So the key language there to know that we're talking about a D1 as opposed to D0 for company G is the fact that they say they are expected to pay out a dividend of $2, not the last dividend they paid was $2. So if the last dividend they paid was $2, that would be D0, and then we would have to calculate or put in 1 plus EG here, right? So that would be 1.0833 times 2, which would make the numerator, 2.16 or thereabouts, 2.17. But since it's saying the next dividend, right? The next dividend that's expected to be paid is going to be $2. Then we know that the problem is already giving it to us as D1, right? So D1 for firm G is going to equal 2. So we're going to put E P0 is equal to 2 divided by the expected rate, the required rate of return of 0.15 minus the expected growth rate of 0.0833, right? And so we get 0.15. I'm going to calculate the denominator first, divided by minus 0.0833 gives me 0.067. I'm going to invert that, and then times the numerator 2, and I get 29.99. So the answer here for D, right, is 40. For G is 29.99. And so even though G is a growth firm, so the growth firm is actually worth less than the dividend paying firm because the implied rate of return is less than what's so at the end of the day, the firm D that pays out all its dividends is actually more valuable than firm G, which pays out only 1/3 of its earnings in the form of dividends. And that's because the firm is not growing fast enough. So even at an 8.3% growth rate, it's not growing fast enough to generate a higher rate of return for investors. And so it'd actually be more valuable for the firm to just go ahead and pay out its earnings per share unless it could increase its growth rate. If it could increase its growth rate, then mathematically you could see we would arrive at a dollar figure, EP0 dollar figure that would be at 40 or higher. So if you could say increase the growth rate such that we had, let's see, it would have to be at least 10%, because then you'd have a point, the differential would be 0.05. So if you had a differential of 0.05, you inverted that, that'd be 20, so 2 times 20. So at that point, if you could get a 10% growth rate, then you would be indifferent between either firm D or G. But since the growth rate is not sufficient to justify the firm reinvesting, then the firm should just go ahead and pay out the earnings as dividends. But the basic answer to the question is D's worth 40, G is worth 29.99, or roughly 30.